Right everybody, and welcome again to another live feed. Here we go. Now this is part 3 of painting this lovely little wren. So we're quite interested to see how we get on today. And what we're going to be working on are both the feet and the legs. Well, there's only one leg actually. And also I'm going to show you how to paint some very detailed and realistic looking wood at the same time. Okay, so hopefully that's going to be over the next hour or so. Now if you've missed my previous live sessions, parts 1 and part 2, after this video has gone live, I'll put a little link up there in the top right hand corner for you, which will be my playlist, so you can just go back to those previous lessons, okay? And you can have a play with them and just watch those first, and you can see the very start of this painting. Alright, so I'm just going to reinforce a little bit of this. Now I've left this for a week, actually really left it for a whole week before we're doing anything else on purpose, apart from just a few little tweaks straight after going live last week. And just adding a little bit more of the burnt sienna and raw sienna mix, just to warm up just the underside of this wren, a tiny amount. Okay, you ready? Let's go for it. Now the paints, as you can see here, these are the same paints from last week. Honestly, all I've had to redo is get my little water spray pot here, give them a very light spray, and then to reactivate them, just give them a quick mix up like so. Now you can do this so many times, after a while you probably find it gets a little bit bitty, you know what I mean? So it might get a little bit bitty, but if it does, then it's time to kind of change it. Just take it out with some kitchen roll like I've done here, lot, to create some kind of fresh areas, and then you can start again. Okay, right, okay, now I mentioned I'm going to paint the legs and the feet first. That'll do. I'm going to start off with, let's start off with the basic background wash for the legs. Now I'm looking at the reference photograph and I can see, yeah, they look orange, which they do, but I'm trying to think about the background colour. When you pinch into that photograph, you can really zoom into the colours. Now I'm looking at probably a little bit of yellow, so I'm going to go for lemon yellow first. So let's just steal some of that out of there a minute. Bear with me, Mo. I'm going to pop that in there. Just a little bit more. Pop that in as well. Now say hello if you're watching today. I want to know where you're from. Okay, where are you watching from today? I always find that quite interesting to ask that question, because it's quite nice to know that people from all over the world are watching what I'm doing today. So say hello, I'm blah 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 and I'm from. That's it. Go for it. Go on, tell me. Right, so this is cadmium orange with lemon yellow. They call me cadmium, no. And a little bit more lemon yellow in there. And I want this more to a kind of watery consistency to begin with. I don't want it too thick. And the reason why is because if it's really thick, it's going to go on, as I say, too thick to begin with. And you find it's very difficult to control. So if you want to take paint off, it's easier to remove paint when the paint isn't too thick, when it's nice and pale. And you can cover up those little kind of happy accents as well. So let's just wet this down first of all with a damp clean brush. This is a size 00 by the way, just out of interest. So size 00 brush. I'm just going to see if I can just get my chats on there. Oh, we got a few people on there already. Hello Edie, hello and welcome along to my site. Thank you very much for joining today. Yes, I've been watching you. Yeah, join my website, Devon Artist. Oh, well done there. Thank you very much indeed. John, hello John. John McEwen. Sharon, hello Sharon. Hello Paul, made it this time. Moira, hello Moira. Everybody else got Julie, Robert, Dunk, Sharon, Leslie. Hello Leslie and everybody else. Right, I'm going to carry on now. So wetting the foot down and the toes. Give them a tickle while you're there. Little tickle just down there. That's it. Like that. I want this to soak in just a little bit. If you don't let it soak in, you find it could just kind of run down the paper if you're not careful, like a waterfall. And that's because my board is on a slight angle like that. Okay, ish, sort of thing. And therefore I've got a nice little run on the board. I do that for 2 reasons. The first one is because it saves your back a little bit more, rather than kind of crouching over the top of a watercolour pad when it's nice and flat, which is nice. You know, a lot of people prefer to do it that way. That's fine. But I find that I tend to get a bit of backache doing that. That's after many years as a meter reader, or water meter reader in streets. So lifting the lids for many years before I went doing this full time. So therefore, obviously, you feel it on your back a little bit more. Okay, now that is that one colour there. I'm going to go for some cadmium orange. So cadmium orange, and I'm going to steal some of this brown, which is burnt umber and lamp black. I remember that from last week, and add that into there. Again, this is more of a watery consistency. It's going to touch in just the sides, and to add this colour in. Now you could mix that lemon yellow with this colour to begin with, but I just like to kind of play with the colours on the paper. And you know, you control those colours. It's your painting at the end of the day. You're in charge of that painting. You can control those colours. You can tell it where it's going to flow and where it's going to go. Your responsibility. Just bringing this down to the claw. It's a claw, not a talon. A talon is what you find on the birds of prey. Just in case anybody's wondering. But you'll know that anyway, don't you? Okay. And just a few more around there. Anybody that's put any comments on, I'll have a look at those later on for you, and I will reply in some shape or form just right at the end or later on, okay? I'll have a quick look at you when we have a break in the middle of all of this. Now, so that's one. Let's do the same on the other one. All right. Now, I don't want to wet it too much because I need this to dry fairly quickly. I could get the hairdryer out, but I don't think I've even got it plugged in yet. Yes, I do own one. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. If they know who I am. So wetting the foot, working your way down, and I don't want it bubbling on there like a big bubble. I'll show you what I mean, lot. If it goes on there like so, that's a big blob of water there, which you probably can't see on the camera, but it's it's a big blob of it, and that's in danger of it running down the paper. So if I dry my brush a little bit, if I get some clean kitchen roll in a minute, I'll show you what I mean. So if you dry your brush, then you can just lift off some of that water. That's it. And then drag that around, make use of it for the other toes, claws, ankles, joints, whatever you want to call it, all the way along. Just re-wet that area there, and that's soaking in really quickly. Now normally I would wet the paper, if I'm doing, like for example the body, I'd wet it 2 or maybe even 3 times before adding the colour wash, or the foundation wash as I call it, onto the paper. And the reason why I do that is because it gives you a little bit more working time, which is really good fun, because then you don't feel like you're rushing trying to get the paint on, you know, before it starts to dry on you. But it also depends on how warm it is where you are, how warm your house is, your room is, your little art room, or if you're painting on the kitchen table, preferably using paper at the same time, because you make a mess on the kitchen table if you don't. Then you find that obviously it will dry at different speeds, all down to the wetness of the paper. And they said the wetness of the water then, but you know what I mean. The wetness of the paper, and also the temperature in the room that you're in as well, will depend on how fast it dries. Now this is that mixture again of the burnt umber, lamp black and cadmium orange. Just a basic colour, an underlaying colour underneath the detail we'll be adding on shortly. All ready? Yeah, honestly, trust me, I'm a doctor. No, I'm not. But trust me anyway, okay? So this is all the detail we'll be adding over the top of that. And I want this colour to get nice and rich and really, really bright. Well, not so bright that you've got to put your sunglasses on, but I want it really bright so it stands out quite well. I don't want to overwork it. Okay. Now this side, believe it or not, is nearly dry. So I'm going to go back over to that side now as well. Have a quick look. Hello Sue Ellen, how are you today? Hello Sharon. So that's nearly dry. So what I'm going to do is go to my cadmium orange again. Just put that down a minute. So cadmium orange, look how bright that is. Lovely colour, isn't it? So cad orange, And this is a Winsor & Newton, as in most of my materials, which I use. And also, I think I'll go for some burnt sienna as well. Just going to pop some of that in there. Oh, look at that, lovely. Now I'm going to get my mixing brush, and I've got a very old brush here which I show you each time, which I've had for many years. How many many is that? Quite a few. And it's an old acrylic painting brush which I've had, and I still make use of it, as you can see now. But it's really handy for mixing with because it's stiff bristles. It's a stiff bristle brush. There you go. And it did used to have a point on that, believe it or not, many years ago. Now, yes, I've been painting a fair few years. Love every minute of it and still do. So what I want to do, I'm going to load this brush up. Okay. So I'm going to roll it, load it, or load it, roll it as you pull away, and then kitchen roll again, give it a tap. Okay. And that just takes any residual paint off that brush. I've seen your comment there, Sharon, thank you. And I'm going to start adding this in now, just to the side of the leg, side of the foot, over the top of this first basic wash, this foundation wash. And I want to start mapping out some of the areas that I can see in there. So we've got the toe here, look. Just as a little one. Now my eyes are flicking backward and forward, backward and forward, backward and forward, backward and forward at the reference photograph every few seconds, and that way there's a bit of empty space in my head. Okay, quite a lot. It does echo sometimes, and it does help it stay put because I keep looking back at that reference photograph. So it's well worth just doing that. If you're like me, you can't retain that image in your head for too long, then just keep glancing backward and forward. And sometimes it's quite handy as well, if you lose track of where you are on the reference photograph, just get a piece of card, cut a hole out the middle of it, and one over the top of your painting, as big a hole as you want, the size of a, I don't know, size of a 50p piece, or I don't know, whatever it is in, what's a large coin in America? Come on guys, help me out over there, will you please? And then you can offer that piece of card over the area that you're painting. So imagine that being there. I'll show you what I mean. Look, so I've got one here. So I'll just stretch a minute. So I've got one here. So I can work, if you're doing a very detailed area, it's not too bad here obviously. You'd have one of these on your painting and one over your reference photograph. So you can just pinpoint where you want to go. So that's a good way. You can lift it off. I haven't got the nails. That's a good way of kind of reserving an area so your eyes can go straight to that one little section each time. So just a little tip for you there. Okay. Now this month is a busy month. I'll be live for the Patchings event, which is quite a big event here in the UK. Because it's all done online now. And it's going to be done, this part of it anyway, will be done through the Painters Online website as well. So if you want to join me on the 9th and the 10th, I'll be here live on YouTube for 2 days. Not all day, not 24 hours. No, I can't do that. But I'll be here live for 2 days. It'll be the same time, both days on the 9th and the 10th of this month, this year. Okay? Where I'll be painting the head of a kestrel. So if you want to join me, you're more than welcome to pop along. So I'll be here. I'm just going to have a quick look for you. And this is the event in question, just so you got some ideas on what it's all about. And it's Painters Online, there you go, .co.uk. It's going to go in a minute. 3, 2, 1, gone. Okay, back to it. Just some information for you there. Right, so I'm just kind of picking out where some of these little sections go within the foot, using the same colour at the moment. Then that comes all the way down to the claw. I know people tend to struggle with birds' feet, but I mean my key is one out for the front door. My my little tip for you really is to do what I'm doing here. Map it out first of all. Get to know the shapes that you can see within the foot, within each individual toe. All these little sections I'm drawing now, look. And you find that will make a world of difference each time, because then you know exactly where you're going to be painting, and you can treat each section individually when you paint them in. So trying to block them all in one go. So you've mapped it out, and then we'll start filling these in one by one. Initially, and we'll put a light wash over the top, I think. We'll see what we can do. Okay, so already we can see the way this is going to start to look, because you've got this long centre one, which they very often are, normally on the birds. Very long, and that goes all the way to there where the joint is. And then just kind of working out where this goes at the back of the foot, just to there. Okay, so that's one, just mapped out. I'm going to do the same on the other side now. Now you can see my paint is starting to dry, because it's quite warm under these big lights of mine. So I'm going to give it a very light twizzle in there. I might have to add a little bit of water in there, we'll see how I get on. I don't want it too dark just yet, for obvious reasons, which I mentioned earlier on. So barely any pressure, using my fine tip brush. Bring it down, just on the outside edge. So as I say, if you've got any questions you want to ask, then you're more than welcome to do so, either during or after the event. Okay, and I'll do my best to answer when I get a chance. Obviously it's a bit tricky looking at the screen while I'm trying to look at the painting and think about the colours. I'm trying to see the shape of this toe here as well. Just about make that out. Now the reference photograph, I forgot to mention by the way, is by a very talented photographer, there you go, look, called Ben Smith. Thank you very much indeed, Ben. And that's his details there on the screen that you can see. So you can look him up after, obviously after I've gone live. Don't do it yet. No, stay put, please. Stay where you are. Don't go. I hope you got a cup of coffee in front of you, because I think you'll need it. I've got one here as well, which I'm going to have a slurp on later on in my Stay Hot mug. Now you can see I'm just gradually working out where things go. Now this side of the leg is actually quite pale, so I'm not going to go down there. And the reason why is because I'm going to be blending some of this colour in over the top of that. You find as well, I've painted obviously a lot of birds over the years, and you find that birds' feet do vary, not just in shape and size, but you know, in actual texture as well. Because I mean, this one's just looking at this one now, it's full of lines. There's a few little bits of texture in there, but not a mass amount compared to if you paint, say, I don't know, let's say a golden eagle or a bald eagle or something like that. Then you paint the claws, the feet on something like that, and you find it is different. There's so much detail involved, but they're lovely. They really are lovely to paint. So maybe one day, I'll show you how to paint something like that. But I have got a little video here as well on YouTube, if you want to have a look at it, on how to paint birds' feet, which I put on there some time ago, a long time ago, so you have to have a look for it. I'll try and put a link up the top there for you, so you can see the one in question. Okay, right, so just tickling this in, trying to pick out some of these little details. Oh yeah, that one goes there. And then we got a bit of a knuckle. Notice how the shape gradually goes in just about like that, then suddenly bumps out where the knuckle is, where the joint is, just there, and then goes back in again. Just kind of slenders down, back on the diet, just there, look, and then comes back out again. Not a ball end though, it's not like a really round end. Comes around to there and then hooks in, something like that. And then you got the claw on the end, which needs to be quite a dark colour in a bit. But I'm just going to block it in for now, because we can do things like that. I'm trying to see where that one goes. Oh yeah. So we've got another one just there. pour that one in. Now then, I think that will do. Now we need to start thinking about adding some extra colour and texture within the feet. So where do we start? I'm going to start over the left hand side again. Now we know that side's already dry, so you're working on one side at a time, and by doing so, at least then, you know, you can see how it's drying, and you can see where the colours are that you need to add in. I want to maintain some of these lighter areas as well. So where, let's say for example this section here, I'm going to carry on with the same colour just for a minute, and I can just add this in, but I want to leave just a little bit of that area. Okay, I'm just going to go and get a little bit more colour. So cadmium orange. So I'm running out there. Okay, change brush, and I'm going to go for the burnt sienna again. So it's that rich colour. And what I might do is just get a small amount of burnt umber, and I'm going to pop that just in the corner there. Okay, so I've got that ready to go. Now I'm using a ceramic mixing palette, so you can use an old plate, an old ceramic paint, anything like that. But it's ceramic, listen. There you go. And the idea behind that is that everything dries nice and flat. So for example, you can see here, look, that's what it would be like with one layer in there. But here, that's multiple layers of the same mix. So you can see how it would look when you had more than one colour, or more than one layer of the same colour, should I say. So it's well worth noting that, you know, because that's the beauty about ceramic, is that you can get it to dry nice and flat rather than going in like a big bubble, which it does very often, as you know, in plastic palettes. So this is that mix I've just made, and I'm just going to start adding this in now and start to darken down this one foot. Just looking at where the joints go. It's got to get dark yet. This isn't the darkest layer yet. Just maintaining those little sections so I don't lose them. Just going over the same areas, just darken those lines, and you find gradually this will start to come together. So I'm working on one section at a time here, just making sure I've just outlined that section, and I'm going to bring in just a few little marks within each section, but on the right hand side of the foot, or the toe in this case. Just on that right hand side, because that's the shadow side. So I nearly went into a song then, Me and My Shadow, for some reason. I've got no idea why. Me and okay. Behave yourself, ball. And down the side there, just pull out a few little areas, and you can see this starting to shape up already. So when you get that darkest layer on, and then we add obviously the watercolour whites, which we'll be putting in there as well. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. We did use that on part 2 of our Wren. So if you're interested in learning a bit more about watercolour white, I've got a video on that as well. I know, I'm busy. So I'll pop a link up in that top right hand corner for you, that little card that you can click on. Hopefully it should open up in a new window so you don't miss what we're doing here, okay? If not, just save it till later. Just click on it later. So a little bit of information there for you on how I kind of assess using watercolour white, something like that there. Right. I've got a more in-depth one obviously on my website, but that's fine. This one will give you some ideas on what I do. Now I'm just keeping going over these same lines time and time again. Now I could continue and just paint this one foot and all its little toes and claws, but I don't want to lose the mix I've made up, because while I'm working on that and working on the darker layer, this will start to dry. And when this is dry, you've got to re-wet it, which then means that when you re-wet it, it's obviously going to get weaker because you've used more water in there. So that means you've got to mix some more. And when you mix some more, this isn't too bad because it's only, you know, it's only basically 4 colours actually, isn't it, on this one? So 3 colours on that one. So because of that, it's not too difficult to remix the same shade or the same tonal values of that colour. However, to save all that time and trouble, whilst you've got it all nice and wet, work on the other side at the same time, okay? Just to kind of save you having to think, oh no, we've got to try and make that colour back up again. You know, after spending ages trying to get it right. And the thing is, if you do make that mistake, or if you forget to do that, it's not a mistake as such, then don't worry. You know, you can make it back up. But just do some testing on some scrap pieces of watercolour paper first. I mean, like I've got here, look. So I worked on the colours. I did a lot of testing before, and so that's a couple of deers there, look. Oh dear. Anyway. So yeah, so do some testing first of all before you go to the painting, and you can make sure you got the shade or the colour or the mix, whatever you're doing, just about right beforehand. Because it can be tricky sometimes to work on those mixes and just get them, you know, when you've got to remix a colour to get it exactly the same as the previous mix you had. I always do say as well to my members is that make more than you think you'll need. I wish I had taken my words for, you know, properly there, because I should have done that with this one. But not far off, actually, it's not far off. But always make more than you think you'll need, because there's nothing worse than running out, especially if you're working on a background, doing the entire background wash, and then you realise that, you know, oh no, yeah, I've not made enough colour up. What am I going to do? I've got to make some more up and it's drying. Help! So yeah, plan it beforehand. Plenty of pre-planning, okay? Now I'm trying to just again go over these little lines, and I've got to keep putting in some tiny marks whilst I'm doing this. So just working on this toe here. Tiny marks. Now if you haven't already, so click on subscribe on my video. You know that subscribe button just down there, look. If you do that, when I go live, like on the 9th and the 10th, don't forget this month, yay, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, UK time of course, then you should be notified by YouTube when I'm live. So hopefully you shouldn't miss the live events. So click on subscribe and then click on that little bell icon. I'll have to bring up a bell up here soon for when you do that, okay? Because then you should be notified. Thank you in advance for clicking on subscribe. Right, okay. And also any videos which I produce anyway, you'll be notified. So I'm trying to get something on here every week. Now I'm just using a semi-dry brush now, creating a small amount of texture. Just a little bit more there. I have to re-wet it then. Just a small amount of texture just to start to create some form of, I don't know, like a, not rough, but a little bit of a skin feel to it, or for the legs, if you know what I mean. Just very marginally skipping over the top, using a dry or semi-dry brush, just to pop these in. You can barely see them on the camera, I know, but they are there. We know they're there. Okay, now, here we go. Let's go dark. You ready? Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Georgia. Oh, hello from Moscow. Hello, how are you today? Thank you very much for joining me today. Right, here we go. Lamp black and burnt umber. Lamp black and burnt umber. I'm going to load it. I'm going to roll it. I'm going to pull away. And you know what I'm going to do next, don't you? I'm going to give it a tap on some kitchen roll just to take off that surplus paint, remember, because it's so important. Otherwise you get a big blob of that paint on your paper. Now, this isn't the darkest colour yet. Honestly, it's not. This is the next to the darkest colour. And the reason why is because I want to go dark gradually when I start adding these layers in, because you don't want to kill all that lovely colour underneath. Now, it's going to naturally be darker underneath the belly here, or the side of the chest. What would you call it? The belly or the chest? Near enough both, isn't it? And so it's going to be dark under there because obviously it's shadow over the top. Bringing it down. Thinking about the shapes that we can see in there. I don't want to outline every single shape, because if you do that, it will look like it's just all been outlined. So you've got to be careful not to do that. Working on individual sections at a time. Bringing this down to there. A little bit more there. Just keep it to the right hand side really, because I don't want to, as I say, just ruin all that lovely colour. And I'm thinking about the way the light's coming again on the paper there. definitely coming from that direction. And then down to the bottom. Okay, right. Let's do the other side. So this is going to be this one here. And right round that toe. Thinking about the claw. And what else we got? Tiny amount there. Now that's a little bit too much. I'm going to get a damp clean brush and just soften that back a touch. And then using this damp clean brush, again, I'm just going to tap, not rub, just tap it, just to blend that in slightly with a damp clean brush, just to bring it together. Hello Jan Petty 4, how are you? And then carry on. Just a few more around this toe here. Now I'll tell you what I've gone and done. So I'm going to have a quick drink of coffee just briefly for 2 minutes in a minute. I'll put a little video together for you on another Wren I've painted for one of my tutorials on my website. I'm sure my members there will know the one in question, so I'll just put just a 2 minute clip together for you. So give you some ideas on how I painted the Wren. And while that's playing, I'm going to carry on and start on the other side as well. And have a few slurps of coffee, which is going cold, in my Stay Hot mug. And I'll see you shortly when I've done that, okay? So I'll give you some ideas as well, because it'll show you a little bit about adding the watercolour white over the top. Also working on the very detailed feathers as well. So just stay tuned, and I'll pull that up very shortly for you when I reach across the computer screen. Oh, that's looking better, isn't it? See, that's coming together now. Just need to add the darkest layer over the top in places, and we should just be about there with a few little highlights. Okay, right. 1 second, I'll be back in, well, let's say 2 minutes. So just enjoy this a minute, it won't be long. Just reinforcing the detail. Not a lot of paint on the brush, it's nearly dry. Just to kind of get the detail going on the paper. You can see it's starting to work. Just lots and lots and lots of very light, fine lines. Get some more paint. I'm not loading the brush up fully, so when you look at my test sheet here, I'll just put it on there. You can see how faint that is. There's not a lot of paint on that. And that's a kind of, if I was using it quite loaded, it'd be like this. So really, just take some off a minute. It is literally like that. That's all I'm doing. Barely touching the paper. Okay? Right. So we'll continue with that. Alright, so a few more down there. That kind of comes around to there. Just pick it out that little bit. It doesn't matter if you don't get them all in. As I said, we'll pop some in later on. Well, I say later on, I keep saying that, but it won't be that far away. Really? Yeah, really. And probably there. Just carefully looking at the photograph, make sure I've not missed anything too obvious. So you don't have to be too precise for this stage. So again, this is that darker colour of the two. So only thing, we haven't used that many colours as I said earlier on for this yet, have we? So it's not too bad. Okay, this needs to be kind of reddish colour down here. So we'll leave that down there towards the bottom of the shorts. I think that's far enough down there now. And then on the eye stripe, we'll put a few details in there now. Get a bit more white on the brush. It's not going to be completely white this area, but we need to put a few in just kind of make it stand out that little bit more, because it is quite distinctive, these little stripes on the Wrens. There you go, that wasn't too bad, was it? Hope you enjoyed that. Gave you something to kind of look at and give you some ideas on just some of the things which I'm doing at the moment on the videos which I've produced. It's got to turn down that background music a little bit. I think it might be a little bit on the loud side. Okay, you ready? Let's carry on. Now, gone on to this side just very briefly after having a quick drink of coffee, And just looking at the way this goes along that side, it's not too dark, is it, on the reference photograph? You can just see it down there. So I'm just looking at the way that these come along. Sometimes you need to overemphasize it just that little bit, okay? Not too much, just a little bit. Just make it stand out a bit more than it does on the photograph. Just a bit of artistic license, basically, is what they call it, don't they? Which we can do. We're quite possible we can do all those sort of things. It's our painting at the end of the day, which it is. Okay, and looking at the claws, just down there. Tiny little tweaks. We're nearly there already with these feet, believe it or not. Just a few extra tweaks that we've got to do once we've got this kind of, well, nearly dark colour on there. So I'll go slightly darker, not much darker I don't think, especially on this leg as well, so it's quite pale. The problem is if you put too much of this on, it can completely deaden the colour underneath, even though there's colour within this paint. A little bit more there. Okay, and just thinking about some of the little sections we can see within the foot. And a little bit more around there. There we go. And tweaking it up to the leg. And that's not too far off. A bit more down there. Okay. Oh, I'll tell you what we will do. I'll just pop in this this claw down there. And it's a little bit of a dark area right on the very end. Is that looking better? What do you mean no? Of course it is. It's looking better, isn't it? Oh, I don't know. Just can't get anything right. Okay, I'm going to go for... No, I'm not going to go. I'm going to go for a little bit of black now. Black. No, not black. That's that one just there. Look, see it? Black. Quite obvious really, black, isn't it? So this is lamp black, but what I'm going to do is pop it into my lamp black and burnt umber. Now I tend not to use black on its own because by doing so you find it can look very flat. So if you're going to use black paints, I'd recommend, which is what I've always done, to mix a colour with it. Or you can just mix your own if you wanted to as well. You know, red, blue kind of colours, which you can do, red, blue, green. All sorts of colours you can make to make a very dark mix regardless of what it is. Okay, so that's going to be black and brown basically. That's very technical, isn't it, that? It's black and brown. And this is now to a creamy consistency. Now I tend to work on four different consistencies. I can't get the words out this afternoon. 4 different consistencies, and they will be watery, and that's the same as you'll get out of your kitchen tap. There would also be milky, which is just a little bit thicker than tap water or faucet water. Then there is creamy, which is what I'm using now. And then the final one, you know what that one is, don't you? Thick, of course. Yes, thank you for that comment. Very kind of you. So thick. So there's 4 different kind of consistencies which I personally use. The thick paint really is not very manageable. You can't do what I'm doing now. You can't spread that paint on there. You can't draw a line in one go without that line breaking. And that's what I would class creamy consistency to be able to do. Just out of interest for you. Okay, get that little tweak around there. Think about painting the claw again. I'm not using much of this now. And the reason why is because, as I said, I don't want to cover every single thing up that's on there. I'm going to go back to my orangey mix, which is just about drawing one area and just Tintin. Wasn't that a cartoon character, Tintin? It was, wasn't it? Tintin, that area there, and Snowy the dog. Yeah, I know. Been there, done that. And add a little bit more of this colour just to brighten up these feet now. But only on one side. You've got to think about that highlight that's coming through. Now the highlight, we can either reserve the white of the paper, or we could add a little bit of watercolour white. That'll do. And I'm going to go to the other side now and carry on with that one. Now, I don't need much at all on this side. Just underneath the bottom, just there, look, there you go. I want to darken that down a fraction, and then I'm going to just very lightly soften that back a touch with a damp, clean brush. And the same goes for this area here. Just one side though. Don't want it too dark. Just down to there. Jan's working on the links. Well done, Jan. That'd be quite an interesting one. Got big ears. And that's not just me either. Okay, and working down the side here, adding a few more extra details. Again, I get excited at this stage because it starts coming together really well. Again, I don't want to just block all the lines, outline everything in black or this dark colour, because that will, again, it'll just kill all the colour that's underneath, and we don't want to do that. So just be gentle with it. Less is best with a lot of paint that we use, especially watercolour whites. I'd say that a lot. Probably too much. Okay, I think that's looking better. Just want to straighten this leg out a touch. Okay, now I'm going to carry on and add in that orangey colour. So that's cadmium orange and burnt sienna with a little bit of burnt umber, just to warm up again like I've done on the other side, certain areas along the feet and down to the claws, of course, on the inside of that one and to there. Yeah, that's looking all right. Yeah, okay, right. Just touch that one in there. Now then, let's add in a little bit of watercolour white. Now, watercolour white, I've still got some old stuff in there from last week, or was it last year? I can't remember now. We could use that, but it's a little bit too mashed up now. I need it slightly thicker than that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just squidge a little bit more from my opaque white here, as you can see, into my mixing palette. Just a little bit. I don't need much because these are very tiny feet, aren't they? Try and get the lid back on again. Do you ever have that problem? And I want this now to a creamy consistency, so let's just drag that bit of water up there. And this is what I've just popped in, and I want that to a creamy. So load it, roll it, pull away, give it a tap, and then we'll carry on and add that in. Now I'm just going to get some paint off my hand so I don't get it on the paper. Now people ask me, why do I hold a piece of paper there? Well, you can imagine that you've got natural oils on the side of your hands, haven't you, on all our hands, which you can then transfer to the paper. If you do that, then you find it can act like a wax resist, and you find the paint won't stick, you know, so you need to make sure you protect that paper in some shape or form. Now you can do that by using a piece of paper like I'm doing. This is a piece of printing paper, that's all it is, just half a sheet actually. I couldn't afford a full sheet, so that's probably what it was. Half a sheet of printing paper, or you can use tracing paper because it's semi-transparent, isn't it? Which means you can see through it. So you can cover the entire paper, cut out just wider than the image itself, and then add that over the top. At least that way, you are then protecting the paper. You can wear a glove. I did a video on that at some point. You can wear a glove which goes over 2 fingers there, and then across your hand. So all this area here, just there sort of thing, is covered with this one glove. Now I've got one of those knocking about somewhere, but I did find it makes your hand rather hot after a while. So that's another way you can do it as well. There's so many methods, there really is, isn't there? So many methods. What method do you use to keep your paper nice and clean? So post it in the comments down below. I'd love to hear that. It'd be quite interesting to find out as well, wouldn't it? See what people say. Okay, now a bit more down there. And this is nearly there already. Just touching in where I can see the light kind of catching on the leg, just here, look. Just catches on the side. Skipping at the same time. Don't want a solid line going down. Little bit there, little bit there. And there's a little bit there. Thinking about the shapes all the time while I'm adding this in. I don't want this too bright, you know, I'd want it so it stands out just enough. The brighter you can make it really bright by just making it thicker. Or you can have it so it kind of dries a little bit duller by adding more water to it. And that's really good for situations when you've got something, for example, let's say we're painting a white dog. Okay, I know, nightmare. But I've painted a white dog, one with curly hair. Bedlington Terrier I painted once, I remember that one. And that was a tricky one to paint, but it's good fun though. So what I did for the white underneath the chin, which is obviously in shadow, even though the fur is obviously white, it looks dark. I just used some diluted watercolour white over a dark background, and that worked really well. So again, check out the video on watercolour whites and you'll see what I mean by that. Right, and I think that will do for the legs and the feet. Now then, you ready to paint some wood? Well, of course you are. Of course you are. Let's get some wood painted, shall we? Because time's ticking on. There's no hurry though. Never ever rush your painting. So wash your brush out in the dirty water and then in the clean. And what I'm going to do, I'm looking at the photograph, but I might not paint it exactly the same as that. I tend not to. I like to just paint just a wood texture. So I'm going to show you what I mean. I like to use the colours I've already got in here without adding too many extra ones to those colours. So how do we do that? So first thing we're going to do, we're going to start off with the lightest colours first of all. That one and that one. And that one, if you remember, is raw sienna and that one is raw umber. Okay, so raw sienna, raw umber. That one is raw sienna mixed with burnt sienna, I remember from last week, and this is burnt sienna. And then we can go gradually darker as we go along. I'll get a little bit of brown in there as well, a little bit of burnt umber. So that's giving us some general idea on how it's going to be approached. So I'm going to switch now to my size 5 brush. It's a big one. It's a big brush for me, this, as you know. It really is. So I'm going to go to the size 5. Just zoom out on the reference photograph so I can see exactly what I'm doing here. Here we go. Excellent. I love painting wood. Really do. It's good fun actually. Really is, because you can just let yourself go, because you know the way I see it is that not every piece of wood is the same. Okay, so I'm just going to wet this down with water, by the way. Clean water. So not every piece of wood is the same, and because of that, you find that you know you can paint it whatever way you want. It doesn't have to be the same as a reference photograph. It really doesn't. You can make it similar if you want to, or you can just simply do your own little design, your own freehand way of creating some wood texture. So what you need to do is wet it down first of all and allow that water to soak into the paper. We can work on one section at a time, just to, you know, because of drying times on the water here, especially as I said underneath my lights. Or we can do them all in one blast. And if you do them all in one go, you need to make sure that you've wetted the paper sufficiently beforehand. You don't want it really bubbling up with water. You want this water to soak into the surface of the watercolour paper, just that little bit. Not so it goes off, you know, so you haven't got a shine on it. Just so it soaks in, you can then see the texture of the paper. Oh, and don't worry if you catch the edge of the claws and stuff. We'll tidy those up later on. We don't have problems here, you know. We really don't. As the great Bob Ross used to say, we have happy accidents. Yay. Oh, I love that. I love it. I do. Ah, joke. Right, okay. And then just to the side. If anybody's wondering where I'm from originally, I was born in Manchester. I was born in Manchester. And then when I was about 5 years old, something like that, my parents decided to move house and go back to their own place, or their neck of the woods as we call it up there, Chesterfield, which I lived in until I was 17 years old. And did all my schooling there, then moved to Devon, to the English Riviera, Torquay, Paynton and Brixham for quite a lot of years, and now I live in North Devon with my partner Joe. There you go. That's my life history, all in one go, just like that. You can actually fit it on the back of a postage stamp, it's that short. There you go. Now that's soaking in really quickly, and I'm going to go first of all for the raw umber. I'm going to pop this straight onto the paper. Now, I've also got a video on here. I've got loads of videos on YouTube, by the way, if you're interested. on painting bark. Really, yeah, painting wood and bark. So if you want to see another way I've done this, and as I say, each way you can make it completely different. I'll pop another link, another card up there for you after this has gone live, okay? So you got some ideas on that particular video. Just give it some sections, some ideas really on the kind of things you can do. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to soften that down a little bit there with a clean damp brush and lift some of that paint off, just so it fades a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to just add this in now, down here. See, this is drying already down there. It's already starting to dry on me. Told you it would do. I knew it would. And I'm painting wood. Okay. And down to the bottom. I'm just trying to make sure everything's working okay, which I think it is. If anybody can see any problems with the video, please let me know, because I don't know. I've got no idea how it's all going. I'm just talking away. I feel like I'm talking away to myself, but I know I'm talking to you guys, okay? And just the way I normally do on all my videos. So wash your brush out, come back in with a clean damp brush. I'm going to soften down this bottom edge, just that little bit. Okay, now while it's damp, I'm going to go in for that mixture of burnt sienna and the raw umber actually on that. So burnt sienna and raw umber. And I'm going to tap this in now, just to get some warmer areas within it. That's plenty, that's all I want to do. All I want to do is tap some paint just in there, around the side. Now, do you ever sing when you're painting? I do. I do, a lot, honestly. Really do. Love it. Always puts a smile on my face, it really does. And you want to try it if you don't do that. Even if you can't sing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to go for some burnt sienna. Now, this is strong colour, isn't it, burnt sienna? So I'm just going to add a little bit here and there, but now more towards the lower half of this branch, with just a hint in places above it. This isn't the same as the photo of the reference photograph by Ben Smith. This is just my way I want to paint this particular wood. So just dot it around, leaving gaps in between, and allow it to blend in. And then a little bit more just down there as well. Okay, so far so good. Now I'm going to switch to my size 1 brush. I've got another one, I know, size 1. I usually use my size 00, but this is now a size 1. Okay, I'm going to go for a little bit of burnt umber. So bear with me while I just get some ready. So burnt umber, just that one there. Load it, roll it, pull away. Julie Andrew, do you always start with a light background? Not always, Julie, no. A lot of my tutorials I do because of the length of the tutorials. But some video tutorials which I make for my website tend to be, some of them have got backgrounds on, and I put the background on first. Okay, so I have to make sure it's on first, because at least that way you haven't got to try and cut around the image, because you can just use masking fluid initially to mask out the image when you add the background colour on. Now this is burnt umber, as I mentioned, just on its own, because it's going to mix with the colours that's on the paper, and I'm going to start to think about some of the texture within the wood. Now we know it's going to be darker on the underside because that's where the light doesn't get to. So I'm going to make sure that that underside area is going to be that little bit darker now. This is where we start to form the shape of the wood by thinking about where it's dark and where it's light. Just burnt umber right on its own, on its Todd, as we say up north, lad. Yep. I can paint some of these little marks in if I want to, or I can lift them off. So you're in charge of this, remember. You can decide on how much you want to put on and what amount of detail you want to put in there. And if you think that this for the wood is enough detail for you, then leave it at that. That's fine. As long as you're happy with it, that's what matters. It really does. As I mentioned, being happy with the painting, well, I'm just putting this on by the way, same colour, is I believe that you should never be 100% completely happy with the painting. You should be able to find, if you look really hard, sometimes you've got to, some mistakes that you've made and you think, oh, could have done that better or could have done that differently. And I'm sure you all do that as well. I'm sure you do. So because of that, you know there's always room for improvement. You know you're always perfecting your style and the way you paint because you're always finding mistakes. So to find a mistake in your painting is actually, for me, a good thing. Because even after 40 plus years of painting, I still find mistakes and I still aim to achieve to kind of correct those mistakes and do it better next time round. And that's what I tend to look at each time, okay? That's what I try and instill in my members on my website, just to let them know, don't be disheartened when it doesn't work out properly. Treat it as a bit of fun, which it is, isn't it? And that's the way I tend to look at things. Now, so that's a burnt umber. See, this is drying already. It's amazing how quickly it dries. And now I'm going to go for I'm trying to think actually what colour to add in. I might add actually a little colour into there. Really? Yeah, honestly. Let's just get some of the raw umber. Raw umber, there you go. I'm going to steal some of the very watery, I'll get a bit more actually, nearly watery phthalo blue and pop that in there. Look at that. Oh, lovely. Yeah, that's very nice, isn't it? So phthalo blue and raw umber. It's like an off green colour. So I'm going to add that one in as well. It's a bit like it's very similar really to like a hooker's green mixed with sap green sort of colour really. So I'm going to have a bit of green in this. It's not on the photograph. Again, I'm playing with the paints, playing with the wood, and just kind of letting it play with it, let it fly. Let it go, which is what I'm doing basically on here. A little bit of green. Not overdo it. I don't want to put too much on. Just a hint. Okay. Now, here we go. Ready for the fine details? This is nearly dry already. So because of that, I can really start to think about the fine details there. Hello, Maria. You didn't miss me. You're here now. Now, I'm going to go for my blacky brown colour. Now, again, because it's warm in here, that's really, really creamy. You can see I'm trying to drag it through. No, it's not that bad. But it's really creamy. And because it's really creamy, I can load this brush up. I can roll it and pull away. As you know, I'm going to give it a little tap on some kitchen roll. And I'm going to come back in and start adding the darkest details. Sometimes, most of the time actually, but sometimes it's actually quite wise to do this while the paper is still a little bit damp. Not soaking wet, just a little bit damp. Because that will help the details just to kind of blend that little bit more. So let's just darken the bottom line of this first of all. Now, I'm not one for outlining things. I'm sure you realise that. So just darken this bottom line and then I'm going to start adding in these details, thinking about the direction the wood texture goes at the same time, okay? So, a little bit more there. Just got to make sure everybody can see everything okay. And what we got? Oh yeah, just tap that off there. There we go. That's Ben's had his name on there for ages now. It's now gone. It's disappeared off the screen. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm using a semi-loaded brush just to start to add in these details. But I'm actually using a bit of a shaky hand as well. And by doing so, you create some rough texture on the wood. But start from this side. And as you work up towards the top, then you want to come off those details. So what I tend to do, when I've got a fully loaded brush, or a newly loaded brush, not fully, so you remember you've got to tap it first, I'll start off down the lower area first of all, and then as it starts to run out of paint, so it's nearly dry, I just add a few little tweaks here and there nearer towards the top. So for example, this little area here just kind of branches out and kind of breaks off. It's a broken branch, obviously a broken twig, and a few more around there to add those extra little details in with a nearly dry brush. And because we're doing it that way around, you can get some very fine details by doing that, using my size 00 brush. Just a little bit more. trying to think about where that goes there. Again, I'm not trying to slavishly copy the wood that I can see in front of me on the reference photograph, but I want something similar. I want probably the pattern really more than anything, which you can see there. And I can also see that the end of the wood here where it's broken just breaks off into a little dark area underneath. So I'm just going to map that out there first of all. I'll tell you what, we'll just carry on with that area for a minute. So a damp clean brush, wet the area, take some water off my brush first, Paul. I'm going to work this into that line, work it, and bring it around, thinking about the shapes in there. And back to the dark colour again, drop it into the damp paper, drop it in, let it blend out. And I might add in just a little bit of warmth in there as well, which is that cadmium orange, burnt sienna, and a little bit of lemon yellow in there as well. There you go, that's all I want. And while we're on this side using this colour, just bring off a few little spikes here and there as well, adding in a tiny amount of dark at the same time. Right, back to your dark colour, and we'll continue adding these little areas in now, working my way down this piece of wood. Just down to the side. I can see where these marks are, where we've got a bit of kind of bark texture. We can add that in, or we can just simply leave it out. I might leave it out today actually, because I don't need to have that in there. I think it might be a bit too complicated. So add in this nearly dry brush now, so I'm using the dry brush technique just to scumble across the paper. Let that brush wander. You don't have to be too tight with the brush either. Some people hold the brush like that, okay? I tend to hold my brush just above the metal ferrule. And that way I find I've got much more control over that brush. So, you know, just bear that in mind. It depends on the kind of control that you're after with a brush. This particular one, by the way, is a Winsor & Newton. It's a Winsor & Newton Cotman Series 111, size 00 as I mentioned, so size 00, and it's lovely because it's synthetic. Because it's synthetic as well, it's got quite a good, I don't know, bounce rate, if you know what I mean, snap rate is probably the right way of saying it. So all that basically is a way, when you spring it back with your finger like so, how quick it bounces back. And this has got very fast snap rate, which means to me anyway, that it's actually got a bit more control. It's not floppy. It's not a floppy brush. So if your brush has got a good snap rate, can't get the words out again, then you probably find you should be able to get some nice detailed work with a very snappy brush. Right, okay, just going over the top now. I might just pop in some of these little areas around there. Just because I want to, because we can. So scumbling along, and again, this is the sort of thing you can add as much detail as you want to add in there. So nearly dry again, just obviously empty very quickly this brush, which is fine, I don't mind that. My palette is just by my side here, so I can quickly reload it, recharge it. And then carry on. And if you need to darken as well around the legs and the feet, you can do at this stage. You can put another layer over the top. And just down this side now, we're nearly done. I know, don't take long, does it? It really doesn't. When you start getting into the wood effects, I love, as I say, painting wood. And trying to get the different textures as well. I mean, obviously you've got things like beech and whatnot. There's so many different varieties of wood textures. So what I'll challenge you to do is have a play just by making your own wood up like this and see what you can create. And then, once you've done a few of your own, just photograph, I don't know, a branch somewhere. Unusual looking wood, something really rough, something very smooth. So different types of wood, and see if you can paint them from your reference photograph. Don't go breaking them off. Alright? And then see if you can actually recreate something similar. Not exactly the same, as I mentioned, just something very similar to what you can see. And we're nearly there. Now I want to add a little bit of watercolour white in a minute. Oh, I just want to add some little fine details on the end here. Just skim it around. A few more around there. So make sure everybody's talking. Oh, a few people chatting on there. Hello everybody. And just over the feet. A few extra little tweaks. And now for the watercolour white. Really? Yeah, I know. The watercolour white. Oh, I'll tell you what, just soften that down there and add a few more small little details in this section here. Okay. Now the watercolour white will give it that extra little bit of sparkle on the wood, and it's the same process again by loading that to a creamy consistency and pulling away. Give it a tap. And then you can add this in, but not on the underside of the wood, because the light won't reach there, will it? And if it's too much like that, give it a wipe with your finger. You end up with a white finger, but hey ho, I don't mind. And then scumble some of this on, but don't overdo it, otherwise it could just blot everything out, and we don't want to do that. Now you can use white gouache as well, so that's another option you've got, as well as watercolour white, and there are different watercolour whites on the market, but just make sure you get one that's opaque. Okay, as I mentioned, this one I use is certainly opaque, so make sure it's definitely opaque, not semi-opaque or semi-transparent. And you find that when it's nearly thick, when it's a creamy consistency with a very small amount of water, you should get a similar effect. But different manufactured whites do work in different ways. Okay, right, just add a little bit more around there, and I will add just a few, skimming, jumping, creating the texture, having a bit of fun. I'm not going to go down too low, as I mentioned. Bit more down there. Oh, I'll tell you what I'll do actually. I'm just going to just thin this white down a little bit. I just want to get some of these lines in there. But I need to make sure this white is more of a kind of milky consistency. Get that brush to wash out. There's something else you need to do, by the way. Keep washing the brush out in between using white paint, because it can run into your metal ferrule and it can then clog up your brush bristles inside there, which then means your bristles just simply do this. And so keep washing that brush out. Every few uses, every 5 minutes or so, just give it a quick wash out. In the dirty and in the clean, you know that. Yeah, of course you do. Just a few little lines here and there just to give that suggestion that there's lines going through the wood. Okay. A little bit more there. Sharon needs to convert from a floppy to a snappy. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much for listening to me as well. It's very kind of you. So I've got my mobile phone by the side of me here, just looking for comments. I do reply to some. I can't reply to them all, obviously, but I will look at them afterwards. Don't you worry. I will see them. Okay. If you're on Facebook, you find me on there. Don't forget as well. So if you need to find me on Facebook, I'll just give you the links there, just so you know where I am. There you go. Look, just pop that on the screen, so you know exactly where I am on Facebook and how to find me. And on obviously any other medium like Instagram, and obviously my website. And that's going to go any second now. Just make a note of it. 3, 2, 1. It's going to go. It's going to go. There we go. It's gone. I'm not leaving that on the screen. We're here just to chat to you today. So that'll give you some ideas on that, on using watercolour white as well, just to really brighten it. So what I can do now, I can fine tune any little details that I need to tweak at this stage. So I'm looking at, for example, just underneath the claw, just there, just fine tune that one. You've got to remember as well that underneath the feet, it's going to be a little bit darker. So we can add a weak version of, let's say, burnt umber. Try that first on its own. So a weakened down version, so this is more of a watery consistency. Just add a little bit, just below the claw and the foot and the toe and the leg and the body. No, just below the claw. And this will give it a bit of a shadow, as if it's actually physically stood on there. You don't want the feet floating over the top of the bark. So I'm going to go for a slightly darker colour now. So it's got a nice bit of a shadow going on. And pull the shadow out in line with the bark itself every now and then. Gives it a little bit of grounding for the feet. So it looks like it's actually there, as I say. Otherwise it's like floating, isn't it? You can't have floating feet. No, not at all. Now if you want to look at how to paint a robin, which I did live here on YouTube. Okay, would you like to paint a robin? Of course you do, of course you do. Then have a look at my live videos. So what I'm going to do, I've got a playlist on how I painted the robin. I'll give you some ideas. I'll just pop it up into the corner there for you, okay? So you can see what it's all about. A little bit more there. Okay. And tiny little tweaks there. And all I can say is thank you for joining me today. And I'll see you all again very soon here on YouTube. Oh, and don't forget the 9th and the 10th, okay? So until then, we'll say goodbye and bye for now.